Mom always told me I was beautiful. I didn't realize how serious she was until she entered me in a beauty pageant. It had been a rough year. My dad was an illegal bookie, always on the verge of getting arrested, but that year he decided to up the ante by having an affair with a woman in our little town. Well, when Mom protested, Dad decided to leave visible marks on her rather than the usually hidden ones. I was miserable. I'd put on a lot of weight from depression, and I didn't help myself out too much by wearing the 90s uniform of baggy jeans and flannel shirts. So one day when I came home from high school and saw my mom grinning mischievously, I was intrigued. She told me she'd entered me in a contest based on my academic ability. I was an uber nerd, and I loved any chance to show off my academic prowess. But when she started to describe the contest, it sounded really fishy. She said, "It's also based on your personality, and you get to wear a beautiful dress." I said, "What kind of contest is this?" She said, "Technically, it's a pageant." I wasn't interested. I was a feminist. Pageants were sexist and demoralizing. And besides, I wasn't pretty enough to be in a pageant. But Mom was so happy and so insistent. She could not wait to get me in a dress. She hated that grunge outfit I wore. I picked out a pure white dress that my heroine, Emily Dickinson, would have loved. It was too tight, of course, but Mom showed me how to squeeze into it and push my boobs up over the top, and I was kind of impressed with my décolletage. A couple of weeks later, we got to the Galt House, and the first thing that they taught us how to do was to introduce ourselves. But when I went up to the mic and said, "Hi, I'm Randi Skaggs from Upton, Kentucky," the consultants looked at me like I just shot their puppy. And they said, "More spirit, honey." And they made me do it over and over until, like a raving lunatic, I went up to the mic and said, "Hi, I'm Randi Skaggs from Upton, Kentucky." Then came the dance number. You know how every pageant starts with step, touch, jazz hands, you know? This was so gratifying because although I was a big girl, I'd been taking ballet for over a decade and I could dance. So they started me in the back row where they had the less attractive girls. But as the dance went on, they moved me front and center. I can't tell you how sweet that little victory felt. So I was flying pretty high the next morning when it was time for my interview with the judges. I figured, I'm a nerd. I've got ambitions and dreams. I can talk about them. But those gentlemen wanted to talk about my family. And so I was talking about my mom and my siblings, and then one of them interrupted me to say, "What about your dad? Where does he work?" I froze. Well, the standard family lie was that Dad was an insurance salesman. So he said, "Okay, well, which insurance company?" I looked around the room praying that there was some sort of insurance flyer or something, but there wasn't. So I said, "I forgot." They both looked at me with this mixture of pity and confusion. I left, crying my eyes out. What was I doing here? I looked like I wandered in from a science convention, you know, and I certainly didn't have the family pedigree for a pageant, but Mom was convinced I should be here, and somehow I kind of wanted to win this thing. In a couple of hours, the pageant started. We did our opening number, and then I ran off stage to get in my evening gown. Mom came back there to help me, wielding a curling iron like a sword. She squeezed me into that dress, touched up my makeup, tamed my hair. She even put Vaseline on my teeth so that my lip wouldn't stick when I smiled. She was beaming. I could tell she was certain I was going to win. And then it dawned on me. She'd spent her whole life apologizing for her existence. She married a guy that treated her like dirt. With me, she saw a chance at a young woman having a life filled with confidence, certain she was beautiful and expecting everyone to treat her that way. I'd let her down in the past, but I would not let her down tonight. So when I stepped out on that stage, I felt like I was floating. And when they announced the semifinalist, I was certain my name was going to be on that list. But it wasn't. And it was all over. And before long, I went back to feeling like a fat, ugly nerd. But for that one moment, I was a beautiful girl in a beautiful dress whose mom thought she was a beauty queen. Thank you. Thanks, Mom.